March 4th, 2018, 4 p.m. It's just another day for the residents of Salisbury, England. All throughout the city, people are heading home from work. Everything looks and feels exactly as it always has. A woman and her daughter step onto the streets, making their way through the center of the city, but then just as they reach a bus stop that they've passed hundreds of times, the daughter notices something strange. Right ahead on the public bus bench lie a man and a woman completely unconscious. The woman's eyes are wide open and completely white. There's white foam coming out of her mouth. Something is seriously wrong. 24 hours earlier, a 66-year-old Russian man, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter Yulia arrive in London from Russia. Sergei has spent years as a spy for Russia in the UK. What the Russians didn't know was that he was also passing information to MI6, the UK's version of the CIA. When Russia eventually figured it out, he was caught and sentenced to 13 years in prison. Luckily for Sergei, he was part of a prisoner swap in 2010. Soon after he was released, he moved to the UK permanently. Sergei believed his betrayal was in the past. There was no way anyone would still have a vendetta years after he was sent to prison anyways, right? Unfortunately for him, he underestimated how long Russia could hold a grudge. What he had done was the ultimate betrayal against Mother Russia. They just couldn't let it go. As Sergei and Yulia arrived back in London, undercover assassins were waiting for them. These assassins were a part of Russia's infamous GRU. The GRU is Russia's military intelligence. They have their own special forces units, they answer directly to Russia's military command, and they are even more ruthless than the KGB ever was. Sergei and Yulia went out for lunch around 2 p.m. They had a few drinks in the city center, and everything seemed normal. But then suddenly, everything went wrong. The two found their muscles paralyzed as they were desperately crying for help, suffocating from the inside. You see, these two had just been poisoned. And no, it wasn't in their food or drinks. The poison is known as Novichok, and it was sprayed on the front door handle of Sergei's home. That is all it took to incapacitate the father and daughter, leading them to crawl onto a bus bench, waiting to die. When luckily, an army nurse and her daughter found them. An ambulance was called, and Sergei and Yulia were rushed to the hospital. Miraculously, both survived after a long stay in the hospital. The GRU's plan may have failed, but the message was clear. No matter where you run, no matter where you hide, if the Russian government wants you, they will get to you. These agents didn't try to hide their face or try to assassinate Sergei in secret. They didn't care about CCTV cameras or being seen. They were here to send a message. They wanted everyone to know who they were and what they had done. For decades, the GRU has been the Russian government's #1 choice for doing its dirty work. They're the guys Putin sends in when he wants to make a statement, when he wants to create fear in his enemies, and they are experts at what they do. This is the GRU, Russia's most feared assassins. Russia's GRU members are chosen for their skills and abilities, and one skill that can make you a lot of money right now is data science, where the average data scientist makes around $121,000 a year, but it can go up a lot more than that. That's where Data Camp comes in. Data Camp is an online learning platform that teaches data science and data skills to over 350,000 students around the world, all online and at their own pace, covering everything from non-coding essentials that everyone should know to full-blown data science and machine learning. They're literally democratizing data skills for everyone, which is a super valuable skill right now. The average data scientist makes $121,000 a year, but it can go up a lot more. Data Camp has over 350 courses for people at every skill level to become more data fluent, and the courses are designed by top experts in the field. I really like their skill tracks, which provide you with a collection of courses to build up a specific skill. For total newbies, I'd recommend the Data Literacy Fundamentals skill track, which teaches you how to understand all types of data through hands-on exercises. And if you're not sure where to start, you can take one of Data Camp's free assessments to get personalized learning recommendations. Plus, Data Camp doesn't require any software. You can do everything right inside your browser. Unlock new career opportunities and become data fluent today by using my link below and checking out the first chapter of any Data Camp course for free. Pause the video and click the link below to get started now. Thanks to Data Camp for sponsoring this video. The GRU is the oldest of all of Russia's intelligence agencies. Back when Joseph Stalin was in power, he needed a group of people to spy on the Nazis, and the GRU was his answer. Unlike other Russian agencies, the GRU recruits were some of the toughest in the world. They were loyal to the death, and they would stop nowhere to fulfill their orders. One rite of passage for new recruits was watching a video of an officer who betrayed Russia get fed into a crematorium alive. When the KGB collapsed in 1991, the GRU temporarily took his place. Unlike the agents of the KGB, GRU operatives would never dream of going up against Russia's leadership, and that's exactly how the government liked it. When the FSB was finally created to take the KGB's place, the competition was intense. Both agencies wanted to be the best. They wanted to be the president's pick. To do that, they had to show how creative they were and how proactive they were in fixing the Russian government's problems. This led to the two agencies carrying out some of the riskiest and most ruthless operations in history, all to try to win the president's favor. Today, the competition is still going strong. This is Alexander Litvinenko, a longtime Russian FSB agent, an author, a Putin critic, and the man who solved his own murder. In the year 2000, Alexander fled to the UK after becoming a little too critical of Vladimir Putin. He was scared of being arrested or killed, and to him, England seemed as safe of a bet as any. He never imagined what would be waiting for him. You see, Alexander just couldn't let go of his life as a spy, so in exchange for his safety, he started doing some work for MI6. His background meant that he could get into circles other agents couldn't. By 2006, he was neck deep in a case against the Russian mafia with an old friend and former spy, Andrei Lugovy. On November 1st, 2006, the two met for tea at a London hotel. They were joined by two other Russian men. Soon after the meeting ended, Alexander started feeling sick. He spent the night vomiting, and 3 days later he went to a nearby hospital. Something was very wrong. A few weeks later, he died. The cause of death? Polonium poisoning. Polonium is one of the most toxic substances known to man, up to 1 trillion times stronger than cyanide, and it's radioactive. Looking back, it was probably the tea that he drank at that meeting. Once the polonium entered his bloodstream, all of Alexander's major organs were under attack. By the time he got to the hospital, it was already too late. Alexander cooperated with the police right up until the end. With this help, they were able to figure out that the two men that joined him for tea were Russian GRU agents. Apparently, Moscow had never gotten over Alexander's betrayal, and he wasn't the only one. Alexander was just one name on a long list of names targeted by a special department of the GRU, known only as Unit 29155. Unit 29155 is in charge of all of the GRU's assassinations and sabotage attempts. In 2020, another Unit 29155 operation was uncovered. This time, the agents offered Taliban members huge bounties for every American soldier they killed. 20 American soldiers were killed the year before. At least some of the men responsible may have received money in exchange for their attacks. But the GRU aren't just bloodthirsty assassins going after traitors. This is Fancy Bear, a group of elite hackers and coders. Their job? The online sabotage of any pro-American or anti-Russian groups or companies. And they have some pretty creative ways of doing it. In 2015, they took over France's national TV network, but instead of announcing it was them, they made it look like it was a group of hackers for ISIS. They called themselves the Cypher Caliphate. They kept the 12 news channels hostage for over 3 hours. They even hacked the network's Facebook and Twitter pages. And when the World Anti-Doping Agency wanted to ban Russia from using performance-enhancing drugs, well, Fancy Bear got into their user database and sent thousands of phishing emails, trying to gather information they could leak to the public.
Do you have any doubt that the Russian government was behind the intrusions in the DNC and the DCCC systems and the subsequent leaks of that information?
No doubt.
Even though they don't openly claim to be a part of the GRU, everyone knows who they answer to, and they are always there when the agency needs them. It was May 1968, the peak of the Vietnam War. America was neck deep in its military operations. What the Americans didn't know was, right around the time the fighting in Vietnam reached its peak, 9 young Russian men were sneaking onto a secret US airbase in Cambodia. America had just started producing a brand new attack helicopter called the Super Cobra. Russia's helicopter designs were falling behind, and they needed a working American helicopter to reverse engineer. So these 9 men went in, killed 15 American soldiers, hijacked the helicopter, and destroyed all the others at the base. The US government kept the raid a secret for years. It was too big of an embarrassment. But those 9 men weren't ordinary soldiers. They were a part of Russia's most elite special forces, the Spetsnaz, which is the GRU special forces and the equivalent to the American Navy SEALs. The Spetsnaz are the best of the Russian military. They train under live fire, often get stabbed in training, and have to pass some of the toughest entry tests in the world. They're the tip of the Russian military spear. And right now, that tip of the spear is in Ukraine. Ukraine is probably the most important battle in the history of modern-day Russia. It's a war to prove if Russia is still a superpower and if it shouldn't be underestimated. Which is why it's not surprising that Vladimir Putin has sent in everyone he could think of into Ukraine to tip the scales in his favor. The infamous Wagner Group was in Ukraine long before the invasion started. Of course, the Russian military has sent in its troops. And to back all of these groups up, there's the GRU, sent into Ukraine to make sure Putin doesn't lose. They're there to operate in the gray area between politics, intelligence, propaganda, and combats. And if history is anything to go by, these guys are the ones to fear most.